right, friends, welcome to the What's Right show on the go. Sam Rajovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Well, I still don't have the microphone. It's on its way to me where I am at in an undisclosed location. Quite honestly, near the water. I can see the ocean from here. So here for the week, and forgive me the audio. I know yesterday, Robbie, it worked out. I mean, we got the show out and covered some important updates. The stuff today that I want to get to. And by the way, my email, sam@samandashlaw.com. If you're catching us on the podcast, there's a video version of this on Twitter, on X, at What's Right Show is where we post the video. So yesterday's program was on there. And there it is. Some of you are commenting, of course, that you like seeing me, that you now know that I'm real. Paul, I appreciate your comment. Yes, I'm not AI. I really do exist. And for better or worse, this is my face. Okay. Now let's go through. I want to get through some of these appointments that have come through in the last several days. You know, one of them is Lori Chavez. Chavez de Remmer. She's the labor secretary. Very pro-union. And I think this is a deal that Trump struck with some of the labor people. He intended to hire or put somebody in this position that is pro-union, a nod to the many working men and women and union members that voted for Trump this last election. So not too surprised of this. You know, am I pro? No, I'm not pro-union, obviously, particularly not public sector unions. So, for example, Randy Weingarten from the teachers mafia, I wouldn't put her in charge of anything, but we'll see how Lori Chavez de Remmer is. The labor people seem to like her and are happy with her. Robbie thinks, of course, you don't put a Chavez in charge of anything economic. Understood, Robbie, where you are going with that. So the other perplexing pick, I saw this, was Jeanette Nashawat for Surgeon General. She was terrible on COVID, guys. Terrible on the vax. Was not the worst, though. So I see a lot of histrionics on the right. So Nashawat was not one of the I guess the real bodies in this, but I'm happy that she will be under RFK Jr., who certainly is a hawk, skeptic on this front, and somebody who I trust positionally far more on this issue. Kristi Noem, I'm just going to go back to this one. DHS. Robbie, what's your take on this? Yeah, a lot of people like her. She's the gal. She's the South Dakota governor. Good-looking lady. Took herself out of the running for vice president when she wrote in her book about killing a dog, which kind of a bad look. Anyway, so she is going to be the DHS Secretary, Department of Homeland Security. This is a huge department. It's a 22 agency behemoth. So her experience running a state like South Dakota, which is, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, South Dakota is not a giant state. Okay, so I'm not exactly certain how that experience is going to put her in the position. And I also am not certain that I trust her fully. So we'll see about that. Pam Bondi, I keep coming back to this one as well. The Attorney General pick, Trump. A lot of people that know Pam Bondi think she's going to be very good for the job, which you would expect from people who, I guess, are familiar with somebody. One of the things is she is weak on the Second Amendment. She wants red flag laws and gun seizures without due process. In fairness, Trump has wanted that as well. One of the things that I'm going to be looking for, Robbie, that I think is a top issue for me for the Second Amendment issue is I'm going to want to see concealed carry reciprocity. Now, this is a huge, Robbie, we haven't talked about this one, but well, what it means is, look, if you have a CCW permit here in Nevada, or you have a CCW permit in Florida, and you get in your car and you drive to a neighboring state, you drive, let's say, from Nevada to California or from Nevada to Arizona, and all of a sudden, you're breaking the law if you still have your gun on you, if you have a loaded weapon on your person, because your CCW permit is not valid in neighboring states. And states like California, of course, impose all sorts of onerous restrictions on people having CCW permits, makes it more difficult to get. And, usually if you're a non-resident, you can't get a CCW permit in a lot of these anti-Second Amendment states. So, something has to be done about this because, of course, we have a full faith and credit clause that needs to be respected. Meaning, for example, you get married in Nevada, your marriage is still good if you cross into California. You get into debt, in California, you move to Nevada, you're still in debt, right? You're bound by the laws of contract when you cross state lines. There are all sorts of examples of things that don't change when you move from one jurisdiction to the next. And somehow magically, of course, the big exception is CCW permits. You get your gun permit and people do get into huge hot water over this. So I hope something is done about this. Trump gave a nod to this in the closing stages of the election when he was really throwing a lot of stuff up on the wall. We'll see if he was serious about it. By the way, still people talking about big Marco Rubio and praising him. A lot of folks coming out there praising him. This was, Marco Rubio. I think he was Miriam Adelson's pick. Okay, when you give Trump, what was it, a few $100 million, you're going to get a say in his cabinet. And Rubio's probably the least worst in this regard. He ticks the Israel box, which is important to me as well. He's a China hawk for sure. He'll be a good soldier for Trump's agenda. I just worry a little bit that Rubio comes across as weak. And as far as negotiating with enemies out there, it's just a big question mark for me. Elise Stefanik for U.S. ambassador. I don't know if she's fully in line with Trump's vision, on foreign policy. But, dropping her into the most anti-Semitic organization, the UN, seems to me like a lovely idea. No, the UN is terrible. It is. They give Columbia University and Louis Farrakhan's living room a run for their money. Okay. So I think she'll be good, certainly, blasting the anti-Semitic people out there, the anti-Israel people in the UN, which I think is going to be perfectly fine. The foreign policy thing. What? Well, Robbie's in my ear here. You're saying because Trump called Marco Rubio Little Marco back in 2016, 2015, 2016 during the race, that the moniker has stuck. And that maybe if Trump starts calling Marco Rubio Big Marco, that it will fix it. I don't know. Yeah, well, Robbie, we'll see. Listen, I'm far more concerned when we talk about foreign policy. I don't know if you saw this. These missiles that were sent into Ukraine by Russia last week. This is, I don't know if you've been following this, folks. There's a big deal. The missile system that Russia used is called Oreshnik. Okay, it's not an ICBM missile. It's an intermediate range missile. But the warhead, the technology, okay, that's used this is, my understanding is it's a brand new type of weapon. And there are people here on our side, including a weapons specialist named Ted Postal and Scott Ritter and Brian Berletic, they've been talking about these weapons. These kinetic energy is what these missiles use. And apparently they can deliver the same type of destructive force without the use of nuclear destruction, which means you can go in, you can target, as you can level areas as your enemy targets. You can cause incredible destruction that rivals that of a nuclear weapon, of a hydrogen bomb, but there's no nuclear fallout. And people that I trust that are familiar with, weapon systems are talking about this, or writing this up, saying this is an absolute game-changing weapon. Now, I don't know how fully functional it is. This was a test. I think some people who are, obviously big critics of Biden-Harris-Ukraine policy are quick to predict the defeat of NATO states, of the NATO alliance. But it is a game-changing weapon, and it's a surgical strike weapon, and it basically drops. I mean, people describe it as dropping, metal lightning out of the sky. They liken it to Thor's hammer, which doesn't sound good to me. If you're on the receiving end of that, that just sounds awful. So when we talk about foreign policy, and when we joke about little Marco, and we talk about sending Elise Stefanik, I think there is a reorganization, a power reorganization afoot. And we have to have an honest discussion about this, because a lot of how we have approached foreign policy, for better or for worse, as the United States, is the assumption that if all hell breaks loose, we have the capacity to unleash truly devastating military force on our opponents. And the idea is that whatever we've got, our military capacity and ability, is going to be, unrivaled. And, it's, I can't say it's any of this is guaranteed any longer, right? I don't know if I see it that way. So I'm bringing this up. The Russians have obviously been cooking something up. I will say, too, never underestimate the Russians' inability to actually create new things and develop, new systems. I mean, they've got the capacity. They have very smart people, but on the execution front, sometimes run into some trouble. But it seems that it's real. And what I hope, our military, folks, has been focused on the most insane, worthless stuff, right? We're DEI-addled. We are out there, fighting proxy wars without clear, mission focus. We're developing weapons by committee. You look at the fighter jet development that the U.S. is doing. We're building planes basically for yesterday's battles. And one of the best, I'll tell you, one of the things that gives me the most hope, right, is one, for talking about all these picks, secretary picks and whatnot, Trump's administration lineup, Pete Hegseth, to clean up the military as a fighting force, very important. But the Department of Defense, as a customer of military technology, needs to become a more sophisticated shopper. And that's the issue, right, Robbie? We got to be more demanding at the Department of Defense what type of military technology the U.S. is acquiring. And it's not just buying, because we are the ones that give the contractors direction. We say, hey, build us. This is what we need. And I think one of the most frustrating things, folks, that I read in all of this, as I'm studying these Oreshnik missile systems out of Russia, that guy like Ted Postel 10 years ago went in and apparently he's kind of limited in what he can do. No, he was already talking about this. I'm looking at it now. Over 30 years ago, he was at a high level meeting. Nobody took it seriously. And, and said, hey, we should be developing these types of weapon systems. And instead, right, Washington is stuck in conventional thinking The defense contractors all have a certain product that they want to sell. So there is a motivation there to make as much money as possible, which isn't always, building the best product that gives a strategic advantage to the U.S. military. So where I'm going with this, Pete Hegseth for Department of Defense, backed by, again, and don't laugh because this is significant, someone like Elon Musk, who understands, that the theater of war is changing, understands technology, understands space, understands, how the evolution of technologies is, affecting the marketplace. And look, this is a guy who has, revolutionized communications, has, probably the single greatest, I'm talking about Elon Musk here, single greatest contributor to connectivity on the planet, who has revolutionized space, travel, exploration, and sustaining life in outer space, who has single-handedly completely redefined the electric car market. You could go the self-driving market, right? Social media. I mean, you go on and on. That Elon Musk has a certain brain about him where he is able to look at things that are, really on paper. I mean, what's the connection between space travel and Tesla? There's some overlap, but not a whole lot. So somebody like that, I think, is going to be able to take a look at what we have in our pipeline and give some significant help and assistance with it. So this to me is, we sit here, we're talking about who's the Secretary of State, what kind of foreign policy is America going to have? And a lot of our foreign policy depends on our ability to win a war decisively if needed. And the only way to achieve meaningful, lasting peace is through strength. Our enemies and our adversaries need to believe that if we're facing a challenge from them, we will win. If it goes to war, America prevails. And I think that will keep everybody else in check. Quick break. Sam Rajovsky, News Talk 840. You're listening to the What's Right Show on the go. Special short program here for my Thanksgiving break. Folks, be right back. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. Be back after this.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show, powered by Sam & Ash Injury Law. Your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Normally on News Talk 840 KXNT, but this week and a little bit of next week, we will be on the road. So doing these quick, short, abbreviated programs in order to catch up on a few items of news and just to keep in touch. If you're listening to the podcast, if that's where you found me, perfect, good, welcome. You've done everything right. If you want to see the video, go on X, and it's free. Open up an account. You can follow very quickly at What's Right Show, at What's Right Show, and you'll find this episode, daily, episodes posted here while we are on vacation. Obviously, this is Thanksgiving week, so typically a week where I am out of the country with the family. So great to still take you with me here and enjoy this time together. I want to get to a very, for me, sad, developing story that's not getting any attention in the mainstream media, but you and I need to talk about. A lot is made of January 6th. Oh my gosh. I'm getting so excited for Trump becoming president on January 20th next year that getting my dates confused. So J6, January 6th, obviously the worst day, the bloodiest day in American history, the insurrection. All right. And a lot is made of people being killed, of dying on January 6th. And when you really go look at it, I mean, I still am puzzled by the assertion that any law enforcement officers died in the line of duty. But of course, there was a prominent death, and that of Ashli Babbitt. Now, Ashli Babbitt was one of the protesters who was inside the Capitol. She was crawling through a broken window into the Speaker's lobby when she was shot and killed. And she was shot and killed by a Capitol Hill cop, Captain Michael Byrd. And she was shot at, well, I mean, it's just important. It's in the afternoon. It was just as this was sort of at its frenetic peak. And this Byrd guy, 56 now, all sorts of stuff is coming out about him. And let me back up for a second here. I am a hugely pro law enforcement guy, all right? Particularly after the last 4 years, all right? Now I'm also capable of being a law enforcement skeptic in situations where people's civil rights are being violated. And this is one of the benefits of being both a conservative, also being an attorney, having represented people who are real victims of actual excessive force and unlawful acts perpetrated by some bad police officers who give all of the good law enforcement officers, law enforcement community, a terrible name. So I remember this happening, and I remember my commentary at the time, Robbie, where I said, "Oh my gosh, this is really an atrocious deal, because this lady, Ashli Babbitt, is shot and killed. She's not armed. She's not carrying. She doesn't have a gun. She doesn't have a knife. She's not carrying a baseball bat, a cudgel. She's just there trespassing in the building." And at the very worst case scenario, she is damaging, right? Destroying government property. Now, I'm not saying that the destruction of government property isn't a felony. I'm just saying if somebody is breaking stuff in front of you, I'm telling you, the cops don't have a right. You don't have the right. I don't have the right to shoot and kill, right? The use of lethal force is very specifically prescribed. Now, if things were normal surrounding the events of January 6th, what would happen? Well, we would analyze this thing with Ashli Babbitt and with Captain Michael Byrd of the Capitol Hill Police very dispassionately. We would analyze this shooting, and we would look into whether or not it was lawful. And in that moment, it would become very clear to everybody investigating that it simply didn't rise to the level of requiring lethal force. The situation simply didn't require it. This was a lady that was not even, she was feet away from the officer, unarmed. But what happened is we didn't examine this dispassionately. We examined this through a political lens that had to make a bigger deal out of the events that day than really were warranted. And what I mean by this is that Captain Michael Byrd, instead of being held accountable for unlawfully killing a human being, had to be made the hero. Because the Democrats and their few Republican enablers in government and outside of government had to make January 6th far scarier, far more consequential than it really actually ever was, and certainly had to make a big case about how Trump was at the centerpiece of all of this. And we know how the next 4 years played out. Everything from the House Select Committee on January 6th, all the hearings, the witch hunt, all the way through the January 6th federal case prosecution of Donald Trump, which was just dismissed yesterday. So nobody could come along here and say, well, hey, wait a minute, this Captain Michael Byrd, this guy is a problem guy. I mean, he got a promotion in 2023 in spite of a significant history of referrals to the Office of Professional Responsibility there at the Capitol Hill Police. And this is, I mean, Republicans have been uncovering this. For example, Barry Loudermilk, a congressman from Georgia, they've been looking into this. But I mean, there are some crazy instances. For example, about 20 years ago, this guy apparently was a sergeant, and he heard loud banging noises outside of his house and charged out there and began shooting at a van. And his neighbor said, oh my gosh, I was in between him and the bullets that were going through the air. So this guy just is a hothead. And he lied about the investigation. I mean, this should have been career ending for him. But instead of ending his career, he got a promotion after this. And there were other instances. 2015, there's a high school football altercation. He was referred to the Office of Professional Responsibility, which is, the Internal Affairs Department there at Capitol Hill Police. He got into an altercation after a football game, a high school football game somewhere in Maryland. And I guess he got into a tiff with a state police officer who was providing security at the event. In 2019, this guy lost his firearm, okay? He literally left it unattended in a public bathroom at the U.S. Capitol, okay? So this is wild. He was suspended without pay for 33 days. This guy has a problem with his gun. And so he ends up shooting, killing Ashli Babbitt, overreacting. And instead of being punished for this, was given a $36,000 retention bonus in August of 2021. Other officers were simply given $3,000 retention bonuses. By the way, to give it a little bit of perspective. So even cops that were injured on January 6th ended up only getting $3,000. But this guy gets, $36,000. So they gave him $21,000 of home security upgrades, thinking he was going to be targeted by vengeful MAGA patriots. I mean, this is wild stuff. They paid his expenses. They paid his overtime pay. He lost by being off of work following January 6th after he killed Ashli Babbitt. I mean, this just was absolutely crazy. He didn't show up to work. He wasn't punished for that. They entered into a telework agreement. How the hell does a cop, a captain in the Capitol Hill Police, get to do telework? This is just absolutely wild. And again, he didn't get disciplined for violating the terms of his telework agreement after he killed Ashli Babbitt. And the reason for it, I mean, I'm going to just tell you, is because the U.S. Capitol Police, under the direction of the Democrats at the time, absolutely wanted to create a hero out of him. And this is, so this, I'm telling you, this is a huge developing story. Now, my question I have here is, we've had Republicans in charge of Congress for 2 years. What the hell have the Republicans done to do something about this guy who is walking around, a murderer, okay, and getting all sorts of benefits? If Capitol Hill Police fall under the direction of the Speaker of the House, and we are now on our second Republican Speaker of the House in 2 years, nonetheless, we've had control here. We've been in office for a couple of years. How come Republicans haven't done anything about this? And that to me is a question that needs to be asked. Certainly, I hope that Trump's Department of Justice will look at this guy. Again, elections have consequences. So this is a story. I want you to be aware of what's going on, because it's an absolute scandal. And I'll end with this. Yeah. Well, of course, I mean, the House Select Committee. Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly right. Robbie says $3 million, right? And you're right, to investigate. So that's fine. $3 million to investigate. And then guess what? Right? They don't investigate the only death. In fact, they provide, political cover for it. And I was going to say the last sort of epilogue on this, to be clear, and I don't know if it's not relevant to the story in my view, but the officer himself is African American. He's black. Can you imagine the outcry from the left if an unarmed black woman was shot by a white officer? Every person in America would know Ashli Babbitt's name. And so I can't tell you dispositively that this guy, Michael Byrd, was promoted up through the ranks because he's black. I mean, I can't. That to me is a stretch. I'm not willing to make it. Other people, other conservatives have made the case. But I can tell you that if the races were reversed here, this would be an absolute nightmare of national proportion, and the same facts, the same everything. If we just took, the January 6th, the political aspect out of this, I am convinced, Robbie, that this would be an absolute, event. And cities in America would be on fire, would have been on fire in the aftermath of this. So I'm just, for what it's worth, I'm letting you know this is a developing story. Put this on your radar, because it will heat up when Trump takes office, and when we get Pam Bondi or whoever ends up being the Attorney General in to the Department of Justice to begin investigating some of these things. I think it's going to be important. Now, regime change is happening, and the same way that some of these things that have been kind of slid under the rug, like Ashli Babbitt, Michael Byrd, the same way that these things have been swept under the rug, and won't be now, I think will be looked at by the Trump DOJ. There are enormous and monumental changes headed for the situation at the border. And Trump understands that he has a mandate. He understands that people voted for him because they want the border secured. He understands that we have a fentanyl problem. He's come out, by the way, in the last 24 hours, both to Trudeau in Canada and to Sheinbaum, the Mexican president, the new lady down there, the communist who is running Mexico. And he's told them, hey, we're going to do tariffs. I'm going to slap a tariff on Canadian products going to the U.S. I'm going to slap a tariff on Mexican products. If you don't secure the border, if you don't provide border security, I'm keeping those tariffs in. Ball's in your court. Now, crazy thing is, right, Mexico, and I mentioned this to you a little bit yesterday, Mexico is, they're already doing it. They're stopping caravans. And here I am, I'm sipping my coffee. I'm going, the most incredible thing about this is that Biden is still president. Biden's president. Kamala Harris is still vice president. This is still the Biden-Harris administration. I know. Look, the peace with Hezbollah and this deal, this has been on the table for a while. This is not Biden's doing. This is the fact that Israel went in and absolutely cleaned Hezbollah's clock, and Hezbollah has no choice. They've been told by the Iranians. The Iranians are the ones that are settling this peace deal between Israel and Hezbollah, No question about it. So I'm just telling people will say, well, Biden's doing things in the Middle East. Please. Biden ain't doing crap. And he's still president. And Trump isn't even in office, and he's already commanding respect from people who have not respected us for the last several years. Now, it'll be interesting, to me at least, how things develop with the border here in Nevada and beyond. Because you have politicians, Democratic politicians, who are all trying to make a name for themselves. These are, by the way, just generic losers, categorically. These politicians that are out there saying, oh, I'm the mayor of Denver, Colorado, and I'm going to protect illegals. I'm going to harbor illegals, and I don't care if Donald Trump's Gestapo squad come and arrest me and throw me in jail, right? You've heard this. Now, wait for it. The same thing's going on here, Robbie. Ron Ford, our attorney general, so our chief law enforcement officer in the state of Nevada, this D-bag, okay, he's already making the same noise. He's saying, oh, we're going to protect our undocumented citizens and this and that. Now, Ron Ford has taken a break from funneling business to his former law firm to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in fees. So he's, obviously taken a break from that to signal to the Trump administration that he's willing to break the law. And he's doing it to curry, political wins, I guess, with the Democrats, because they think that this is going to be a solid issue for them. Now, I don't think it's going to be a solid issue at all. And I also think it could be a very real situation wherein the Department of Homeland Security and Tom Homan, the border czar, actually go in and begin arresting people. Elected officials. And Tom Homan yesterday said as much on Fox News. He was sitting there with Greg Abbott, Governor Abbott of Texas, and he was asked about the mayor of Denver, but he might as well be asked about Attorney General Ron Ford here in Nevada, about what he intended to do if these mayors, if these government officials, elected officials, do not refuse to cooperate and continue to harbor illegal immigrants. Well, his answer was as no nonsense as one would expect.
You're absolutely breaking law. All you have to do is look at Arizona versus U.S. You'll see these breaking law. But look, me and the Denver mayor, we agree on one thing. He's willing to go to jail. I'm willing to put him in jail. Because there's a statute. It's Title 8 United States Code 1324 III. And what it says is, it's a felony if you knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from immigration authorities. It's also a felony to impede a federal law enforcement officer. So if we don't want to help, that's fine. He can get the hell out of the way. But we're going to go do the job. President Trump has a mandate for American people. We got to secure this country. We got to save American lives. And I find it shocking that any mayor of a city would say, President Trump's been clear. We want to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats. I find it hard to believe that any mayor or governor would say they don't want public safety threats removed from their neighborhoods. I mean, I don't know what the hell is going on in Denver, but we're going to go and we're going to fix it. If he don't want to fix it, if he don't want to protect his communities, President Trump and ICE will.
Seems like a showdown is headed our way in the later stages of January. And I worry that some of these Democrats, like Ron Ford, like the mayor of Denver, who are trying to score political shots and have been outspoken critics of Trump's alleged lawlessness, will find themselves on the wrong side of history, and in fact, on the wrong side of law. It'll be an interesting thing. So I'm going to follow this. I think this is some high-level government officials are actually going to be arrested by Trump's DOJ. And it's going to be beautiful to see. Because again, we're told that the Democratic Party is the party of virtue, and the virtue is you follow the law. No one, Robbie, no one is above the law. So I guess, including the Attorney General of the great state of Nevada. All right, friends, the What's Right show on the go is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. I'll be back tomorrow. More updates. And of course, please, if you can, click to subscribe on the podcast. Let people know if you hear people saying, hey, I didn't hear Sam on the radio. It was a replay. Tell them about this. Let them know. And have a look on Twitter. Have a look on X. Download the app on your phone or look on the website. Create an account, and I'm on there at What's Right Show. At What's Right Show. And you can see the whole video. And yeah, please just follow us there. Great spot to be. All right. It's been great. Good to see you guys. Be well. And tomorrow we'll do it all over again. Sam Rajovsky. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. We'll be back tomorrow.